Hey zoo fans, I'm ZSH Plays. Welcome to Tekton Zoo. Today's going to be fun. We are going to take a tour of the zoo from ground level. We're going to go and see everything that we've built, and then I'm going to do something I've not done before, which is show you some of the future plans for the zoo and a few things that you've not seen. So let's go. I realised a couple of weeks ago that the next episode of Tekton would be episode 25, which felt like quite a milestone. So I decided to do our first proper zoo tour. But then events overtook me and the anniversary update was released, and I wanted to get the black and white rough lemurs into the zoo. So we built the anniversary lemur house instead, and now we are back on the tour. So we are here in the Grand Plaza. This is the central hub of the zoo. We've got Penguin Palace in front of us, which was the first habitat that we built. And then all around this plaza are entrances to the other main areas in the zoo, along with the gift shop and an info kiosk, and then some exhibits as well. We've got tree frogs away to the left here, and then some snakes on the right. And then four main areas coming off here that we've been building for about 6 months now. So Penguin Palace is looking nice and full these days. I can't remember how many penguins there are in here now, but there's been a lot of breeding going on. They've been pretty busy. We've got the fountains as well that we added in a while ago. And then ahead of us here is Tekton Forest. That was the first area that we built for the zoo, and it's actually the only area that I've really done a tour for, which was back in episode 10 or 11 maybe, something like that. I will put a link to that video at the end. We won't go in there today because if you've been watching my channel you will already have seen it. If you haven't, you can check that video out and there's a full tour of that there. Today we're going to start with Tekton Desert. So this was the second area that we began for the zoo when the meerkats were released. It's only a small area, but it's one I really like, mainly because we have the meerkats, which are one of most people's favourite animals, I think. Always thought it was really weird when the game came out and didn't have meerkats in it, because I don't think I've ever been to a zoo that doesn't have meerkats. You can see the sacred scarab beetle temple in the background as well. And then in the meerkat enclosure is the zoo's logo, and I've designed it so the meerkats can climb up and stand on the T, which looks pretty cool when they do that. And then at the back of the desert is a gemsbok habitat, which is an animal I really like, really beautiful. And you can see just behind it the anniversary lemur house that we built in the last episode, which I'm a big fan of. I think it's one of my favourite builds in the zoo. I basically just stole that from my London Zoo build. And then we exit the desert and move on to the Cheetah Conservation Centre. That is probably one of the biggest builds in the zoo. We did it as part of the Kangathon charity fundraiser earlier on this year. So it is an enormous habitat for cheetahs, and then it has a breeding habitat attached to the back of it, and then a big conservation centre at the front, which the guests can go inside. You can just see it here and get a really good view of the cheetahs. That's the front of the building. Again, one of my favourite builds in the zoo. I was really proud of this one. It's based on a building in Denmark whose name escapes me for the moment. But if you want more details on that, obviously go and watch the Cheetah Conservation Centre episode, and you'll get all the information that you want. But yeah, it was just a really striking design I came across one day with this wood panelling. I think in the original building it's supposed to evoke the sea. It's a coastal building. I thought it worked really well to evoke the grace and shape of the cheetahs, which is why I used it. It's got an interior which is not something I'm great at. I spent a very long time making this. It's probably not the greatest interior you've ever seen, but that's certainly at that point that was the best I could do. I do like these wooden structures with the information boards on it. They are based on a information station, I guess you'd call it, I think it was in the United Arab Emirates, in a zoo there, which I saw and I really liked, and there is a really good view of the cheetahs from here, as you can see. We've also got some Goliath frogs in here, in this little section here, which is dead simple, but I actually really like it, just a circular viewing window. One of the issues with the exhibit animals in this game is how hard it is to see them. I guess the exhibits are four-sided, so if you use them as intended and sort of stand them on their own, then you're always going to be able to see the animals from one of the windows, but I like using them like that, so it's just the one window, so it's kind of potluck whether you actually see one or not. And then yeah, that's the Grand Plaza in front of you, and we've also got this sculpture garden which I built to bridge the gap between the Grand Plaza and the Cheetah Conservation Centre. I use this circular motif throughout the zoo to tie things together, and this brings you around to a new part of the zoo, only very tiny. So this is a franchise zoo, if you've not seen my channel before, so obviously we have to work pretty hard to keep the guests happy, and they were complaining about the lack of food and drink, etc. So next to the Land of the Reptiles here, there's a new pathway which goes up towards the Komodo Dragon House, and we've got a new food and drink concession here, pizza and coffee, as you can see from the sign. It's not quite finished yet, it's pretty bare bones at the moment, but this is going to be tarted up over the next few weeks until I'm happy with it. But right now I like this curving path, and then it's so far essentially just two of the normal standalone food places combined together. You can see the holding pen for the cheetahs away behind it as well, down here. I tried to make the cheetah habitat a bit more realistic than the usual habitats I have in this zoo, seeing as it was a conservation centre. And then moving up here we can see the decidedly less realistic Komodo Dragon House, which is probably one of the toughest things to build in the zoo, because of the fact that there's terrain up about, I don't know, 8 meters up, and then the guests can walk underneath it, so that took some doing. But this is going to lead us on to the latest area of the zoo, the Primates. So you can see coming up in the distance the Capuchin Tower, and then surrounding it is going to be the rest of the Primates area, which is what I'm working on at the moment. So to the left will be gorillas. I'm about halfway through building that right now, and then to the right will be chimps, and I think I'm going to reserve an area behind it for any interesting new primates that get added into the game. And then if you take the other direction, you can go up into the Komodo Dragon House. It's fairly empty in here in terms of guests, which is a bit strange, but when I checked, for some reason the appeal of the Komodo dragons in this game is really low, which is strange because in my experience they're one of the most popular animals in zoos. I mean, they're called dragons, which is a good start. They're the biggest lizard in the world. I've seen them at London Zoo, I've seen them at San Diego Zoo, and certainly in London Zoo, I mean, they've got their own building, and it's always absolutely rammed when you go in there. They seem to be very popular indeed, so I'm not sure why they've got such a low appeal in Planet Zoo, but that combined with the fact that most of the reptiles have a pretty low appeal means that you don't see many guests up here. But once the primate section is opened, with this being one of the 2 routes to get there, I think that's going to fill up pretty nicely from then on. Also, I've limited the number of guests in order to make this video to keep the frame rate up. I think we've got 1500 in here at the moment. Normally I run it with about 2000 and it's a bit fuller. Outside the Komodo dragons, as you can see here, we have the Crocodiles and Cayman Centre, which is 3 buildings in one. So the first one you come to if you're walking from the Komodo Dragon House is Cuvier's Dwarf Cayman, which is a sort of Amazonian style habitat inside this modernist building. They've had a lot of babies as well. We've got little albino in there as well, he's very cute. It's quite a aquatic sort of biome, well, semi-aquatic. And then to the left, once we get past that, is the saltwater crocodiles. This is based on the same design but larger, and it's a much more aquatic habitat, so it's an enormous pool. So they'll spend most of their time in or under the water, and then there's just a little bit of land at the back for them to bask on. So this one was built predominantly for underwater views. You can just see one of them there. So as the terrain dips down, the water level rises, and the guests can see the crocs under the water, which I thought would be really cool. I've not seen an enclosure like this in a zoo. I'm sure they exist, I just haven't seen them, but I thought this would be a really cool way to see the crocodiles. There is a few workshop items in there, those pipes. I probably should mention almost everything in this zoo is built by me. I try and avoid using workshop items, but when I see something small and particularly well designed that works really well with what I want, I will use it. So in the description to this video and all my videos is a link to a Steam workshop collection with all the workshop items in the zoo in it. So if you ever want to check any of those out, please do, and give them a like, because there's some amazing creations in there. Now, leaving the land of the reptiles behind, we're going to come back into the Grand Plaza and explore the other side of it now. So the first thing that we come to is Tekton Coast. This was a long-awaited area of the zoo. I've had this planned from day one. I just didn't have the animals that I wanted to be able to build it. So in here, as you can see from the signs, we have California sea lions and African penguins. Sea lions have another huge viewing window. I love a huge viewing window, if you haven't guessed. And then up the ramp here are the African penguins. So both enclosures have viewing on 2 levels, a ground level underwater viewing, where you can see the sea lions here, and then upper level viewing as well. There's a little baby sea lion there as well. They're so cute. So yeah, you can choose to either go up the ramp to see the upper viewing for the sea lions and the African penguins, or on the path to the right there, you can see the underwater viewing for the penguins. And then as we go up this ramp, we get a really nice view across the rest of the zoo. So the Komodo dragon house can be seen from up here. That's actually one of the things that prompted this tour. I had some comments over the last few episodes about wanting to see the zoo in context rather than just seeing individual builds, wanting to see the whole zoo and see how it all fits together. So a tour seemed to be the best way to do that, and you can see from here that you can see the Komodo dragon house from up on this viewing platform. One day there'll be a whole city surrounding the zoo, but I've not quite got there yet. On the subject of comments, I would love to know what your favourite builds in the zoo are. Please let me know in the comments below. We will look a bit later on in this video at my future plans, and again, it'd be great to get feedback on the things that I'm thinking of building, and if there's anything that you guys want built in the zoo that I haven't thought of, I'd be really interested to know, so let me know down below. Here at the African penguin underwater viewing, it's a bit smaller than the sea lions, pretty pressed for space in this area of the zoo, and that is Tekton Coast. So we're going to walk around now and take a look at the last area that's currently being completed in the zoo, which is Tekton Jungle. So this is on the opposite side of the Grand Plaza to the forest, and this area has really benefited from other areas being built. So I've only done maybe 1 or 2 changes to this area since we finished it, but the fact that it's now surrounded by other things really brings it to life. I love this view here. I liked it when I built it, but now it's even better because there are things in the background. So I've placed more buildings outside the boundaries of the zoo. Eventually, like I say, there's going to be a hell of a lot more stuff out there, a whole city. But right now, just putting down a few apartment blocks and things like that really brings it to life. This is the central habitat for Malayan tapir, babirusa and peafowl. And then behind us we have the red-ruffed lemur's habitat. Nice and lush in here, and I love the way that you can see onto the Grand Plaza and vice versa through this mesh here, which keeps them inside. And yeah, I've just tried to recreate a jungle feel whilst making it vaguely realistic for England. This is their indoor quarters, the Lemur Lounge, which was named by one of my subscribers, Christopher Silaf, so thank you for that. And then moving around here to the giant leaf insects, which similar to the Goliath frogs, you can't see. And then round here we have the sun bear enclosure. There's one of them now up on these climbing structures. This taught me a hell of a lot about climbing in the game, getting this to work. So all three of these structures are climbable. They've got food and enrichment up here, so they spend quite a lot of time up there. And then they've got indoor enclosures which are pretty large, hidden away under the rocks at the back of the habitat. You can see the big waterfall on the left, which is the first thing I built in the jungle. Definitely channeling my inner Mike Sheets to build that. You get views into this central enclosure all the way around as you walk around Tekton Jungle. And then moving on here to the final habitat that we're going to see today, actually, and the final habitat in the jungle, which is the pygmy hippos. These guys are just impossibly cute. They've got, I mean, just look at that little guy. They've got a fairly small indoor enclosure and a large outdoor enclosure with lots of swimming space for them. You can see them enjoying it there. And that brings us round to the only change really that I've made inside the jungle, which is this new drink stand here, again to keep our franchise guests happy. But I love the way that you can see the African penguin house behind it now. Really sort of sets this area up as a living, breathing area. You can see one of the drones up in the sky there that I used to film some of the scenes in this series. Yeah, that is what has been completed so far of Tekton Zoo. I hope you are enjoying it. Please subscribe if you haven't already so you can see the rest of it. What we're going to do now is take a look at some of the future plans for the zoo before we go. I'm going to show you where things are and what we're going to be building. So all of this is going to be taking place here at the northern part of the zoo. These temporary structures that you can see, incorporating some workshop items from my good friend Diggy Duff and the incredible Mr. Domez, are where the new builds are going to go. So you can see on the left, that is going to be our nocturnal house, which is something I have had planned since day one. To the right of it is where our Arctic foxes are going to go. They should be pretty cool with an outdoor habitat for the majority of the time here in the north of England. And then here, before the new primate area, we are going to have some otters. I am so excited for this habitat. This was, I think, maybe the third design I came up with for this zoo. I didn't really know how to build it, and I was pretty scared by it, to be honest. So I've left it for quite a while before attempting it, but it's a pretty ridiculous build. I'm very much looking forward to building it. And then finally, on this part of the zoo here, we have what is going to be the Prairie Cafe, a modernist restaurant overlooking a prairie dog habitat. And at the back of the zoo, we're going to have beavers. We're currently reintroducing beavers into the wild here in the UK, and in Planet Zoo anyway, Tekton Zoo will be participating in that. So that's going to be quite a realistic build, sort of almost like a temporary structure for beavers to come to before they are released into the wild. There are still some blank spaces left that you can see. Those are reserved for aviaries. No idea whether that will come to pass or not, but I've left some space just in case. And those are my future plans for the moment. So thank you so much for watching as always. and I will catch you next time when we will complete the gorilla habitat. See you later.